Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to Retro Pop Planet, and the spooky season is officially upon us. Probably my favorite time of the year. And today I wanted to share with you guys the local legend, which has actually become kind of a big deal recently. I feel like this local urban legend has actually really expanded and has become a lot more well known, which is an urban legend, and depending on which storyline you follow, came about sometime in the 1970s. There are a bunch of different theories of who the Bunnyman was, dressed in a Bunnyman costume. He either was from a insane asylum locally, which might have been debunked, an escapee of Lorton Prison. I actually did a full Lorton Prison episode last year, so go check that out on my channel. Now, this story was recently shared on John Carpenter's new TV series, Suburban Screams. Also, interestingly enough, Adam the Woo came here back in April, I believe, and he also stopped at Bunnyman Brewing, which I'm right outside of. And again, this is a really fascinating story. It's one that I grew up with in the 1990s. It was pretty much self-contained in this area. We used to just scare ourselves or scare friends that weren't as familiar with the legend as we were, and we probably were just making up stories. It seems like the entire Northern Virginia area was under the curse of the Bunnyman at some point, depending on which story thread you were following. And Guinea Road is actually where most of the sightings took place. It is just your regular suburban road. We're parallel to some railroad tracks here, but this was a lot of new track development in the 1970s. So parts of this area were actually under development. There were a lot of empty houses. There were a lot of new construction houses, and a lot of the sightings took place around these homes that were under construction at that time.
According to Fairfax County history, there is a story that a man dressed as a bunny haunts the residential neighborhoods around our nation's capital. The Bunnyman has been a fixture of local legend for at least 30 years. By 1973, the so-called Bunnyman had been reported in Maryland and Washington, D.C. His infrequent and widespread appearances tended to occur in secluded locations and usually tell of a figure clad in a white bunny suit, armed with an axe, threatening children or vandalizing property. By the 1980s, the Bunnyman had become an even more sinister figure, with several gruesome murders to his credit. Although he has been reported as far south as Culpeper, his main haunt has been the area surrounding a railroad overpass near Fairfax Station, frequented by partygoers, the now infamous Bunnyman Bridge. Several years ago, a local Fairfax native and his wife opened the Bunnyman Brewery here on Guinea Road and are working on a new location at the site of the old Lorton Prison. He was also featured in the John Carpenter episode of the Suburban Scream series. It's a fun concept with great beer.
All right, here we are at 5307 Guinea Road, and this is one of the locations that was in a police report and was also posted in the Washington Post in the early 1970s. This was an area that was under construction. Originally, this was all farmland. So they think that the Bunnyman might have been someone who had either lived in this area, was currently living in this area, grew up in this area, and that was disgruntled by all of the new construction here. Just imagine that this was all new tract housing and half-built homes. How freaky it would be out here, because originally this was all rural farmland, and the street lights hadn't been installed yet, and the streets hadn't been installed, and the roads were unpaved. And so I can see how this would be a very freaky area, regardless of whether or not the stories are true. It makes for a good boogeyman. Now, one of my theories has long been that with a lot of these reports of a scary axe murderer or a scary guy running around in a bunny costume with an axe, could have also been to detract people from coming in here and vandalizing the construction sites, because we were in the very beginning stages of the energy crisis, where a lot of these building materials were soon going to skyrocket in price, similar to the way they have in the last couple of years. Now, I watched that episode of the John Carpenter Suburban Screams TV series, and it's okay. I thought it was pretty interesting. There was some pretty good information in there. However, none of the locations were the actual real locations. And so what I'm showing you today, including the Bunnyman Bridge or the Colchester Overpass, are the actual locations. So if you're wondering why this does not look like the TV show, well, that's why. See that all of these houses are early 1970s construction.
Colchester Overpass was built in the early 1900s near the site of Sangster Station, a Civil War era railroad station on what was once the Orange and Alexandria Railroad. Because of its association with the legend, the overpass is a popular destination for ghost hunters and legend trippers. One version of the urban legend shares that a mental patient escaped from a local asylum and found refuge in the woods around the bridge in Clifton, Virginia. Distraught by the murders of his wife and daughter, he remained in hiding and lived on wild rabbits to stay alive, leaving their half-eaten remains by the bridge. One year on Halloween, some children were hanging out near the bridge around midnight and they were confronted by the man. He murdered them in a blind rage and hung their bodies on the bridge next to the dead rabbits. Another version says a bus carrying convicts from a nearby insane asylum crashed and one of the prisoners escaped into the woods of Clifton, Virginia. During a search of the area, police found carcasses of dead rabbits hanging from the trees around the train overpass of Colchester Road Bridge before eventually locating the suspect. The man was wearing rabbit pelts and tried to escape the police, but before the authorities could apprehend him, the suspect was hit by an oncoming train. His spirit is said to haunt that location to this day. Some have said his ghost may even appear at midnight on Halloween.
So a number of different historical societies have done their theorizing on all these different sightings, and I will leave it up to them, the experts, to determine whether or not any of this stuff is factual. Regardless of if any of this is true or not, this has really been fun, and I hope you guys enjoyed this little adventure with me. I will see you guys on the next one. Peace.